I caught my girlfriend on top of a friend in my apartment on the night I threw her a birthday party. And the worst part wasn't what I saw. It was realizing I was looking at the same woman I would have taken a bullet for without hesitation. I didn't yell. I didn't freeze. I didn't ask a single question. I stood there just long enough for my brain to register the scene as real, not a misunderstanding, not a bad angle, not a joke that went too far. Her laugh was soft and careless. His hands were exactly where they didn't belong. They didn't notice me standing in the doorway because in that moment, I didn't exist to either of them. I closed the door quietly and walked away, already knowing that whatever we were was over before either of them realized it. That night hadn't started like a betrayal. It started with planning, excitement, and the kind of stupid optimism you only have when you trust someone completely. Her birthday was important to her. She made sure everyone knew that, so I spent weeks organizing everything. Guest list, food, decorations, music. I wanted it to feel special because she mattered to me. She had this way of lighting up when she felt celebrated, and I liked being the reason for that. There was only one disagreement the entire time we planned it. Her male best friend. I told her I wasn't comfortable with him being there. I didn't accuse her of anything. I didn't say I didn't trust her. I just said the dynamic between them made me uneasy. They'd known each other longer than we'd been together. Inside jokes, constant texting, the kind of closeness people defend with "you're just insecure" when anyone questions it. She didn't get angry at first. She got disappointed. Told me it hurt that I'd even suggest something like that. Said he'd always been there for her. Said it was her birthday and she didn't want tension. Somewhere between her disappointment and my desire not to ruin her day, I agreed. I told myself trust meant swallowing discomfort sometimes. That loving someone meant choosing peace. I regret that thought more than anything. The party was in our apartment. My apartment, technically, but it had become ours over time. By early evening, people were already there. Music playing, drinks on the counter, her laughing louder than usual, moving from group to group like she owned the room. I remember watching her and feeling proud. That feeling makes what came later worse. About an hour in, my phone rang. It was my younger brother. Something had happened with our dad. Not life-threatening, but serious enough that I couldn't ignore it. I pulled her aside and told her I needed to step out for a bit. She kissed my cheek, told me to go, said she'd be right there when I got back. I was gone less than 40 minutes. When I came back, the apartment felt wrong. Music still on, but quieter. Half the guests gone. Empty cups everywhere. I called her name once. No answer. I checked the bathroom. Empty. Then I noticed the bedroom door closed. That wasn't unusual. People sometimes stash bags or coats, but something in my chest tightened anyway. I opened it. That's when I saw her. On top of him. Her best friend. The same guy I'd been told not to worry about. Her hands on his shoulders. His mouth on her neck. Familiar intimacy, not drunken chaos. They didn't jump apart. They didn't gasp. They didn't even notice me. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't something that just happened. This was something that had been waiting. My mind didn't race. It went quiet. I didn't feel rage. I felt something colder. I remember thinking, this is the woman I planned my future around. This is who I trusted with my life. And in the same breath, I realized that future had never been as solid as I believed. I backed out of the room and closed the door as gently as I'd opened it. I didn't confront them. I didn't grab my phone. I didn't want answers because I already had the only one that mattered. I went straight to the closet and packed what I needed. Clothes, documents, laptop, watch, things that were mine, things that mattered. I left everything else. The gifts I'd bought her, the decorations, the mess from the party. I walked out of the apartment without leaving a note. That night, she didn't call me. She didn't text. She didn't even realize I was gone. I later learned they stayed in that room for a long time after I left. Long enough for the party to fully end. Long enough for the apartment to empty out. Long enough for my absence to mean nothing. The next morning, she woke up alone. That's when the panic started. She noticed my side of the closet empty. My shoes gone. My charger missing. She called me once. Straight to voicemail. Texted me like nothing had happened. Where did you go? Then again. Then again. By noon, the messages changed tone. Confusion turned into fear. Fear turned into realization. She knew. She knew exactly what I'd seen. That's when she went to him. The man she'd thrown everything away for. The one she assumed would be there now that I wasn't. She expected comfort. Reassurance. Someone to help her clean up the mess. Instead, he laughed. He told her she was taking it too seriously. Asked why she thought it meant anything more than a night. Told her she'd read way too much into it. When she asked him what they were now, he shrugged. When she asked if he was going to help her fix things, he said that wasn't his problem. And then he said the line that shattered whatever illusion she had left. "You ruined your relationship for this? I never asked you to do that." That's when she understood she hadn't chosen between two men. She'd chosen nothing over something real. She hadn't been special. She'd been convenient. And now she had no one. "If you're still here, stay with me." This is where it actually got worse. She tried calling me again that night. Then she tried showing up. Then she tried sending apologies through friends. I didn't answer any of it. I blocked her number. I blocked her on everything. I told the people closest to me not to pass along messages, not because I hated her, but because I knew that if I listened, she'd try to rewrite what happened. I left the city 2 days later. Not running. Not hiding. Just choosing not to stay somewhere that had already erased me once. And she wasn't done yet. She didn't accept the silence the way people say they do in movies. There was no sudden understanding, no quiet remorse. What came instead was frantic persistence, the kind that only shows up when someone realizes they've lost control of the narrative. The first day after I left, she still sounded like herself. Casual. Confused. She texted as if we'd just missed each other. "Where did you go? Are you okay? Call me when you see this." By the second day, the tone cracked. The messages came faster, closer together, as if urgency alone could bridge the distance. "Please talk to me. I'm worried. I don't know what's going on." I read none of them. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what she was feeling because I'd felt a version of it once, back when I was the one trying to hold something together that was already gone. When she realized I wasn't responding, she did what she always did when she felt cornered. She went looking for allies. My phone lit up with calls from numbers I recognized, but didn't answer. Friends we'd met through her. People who didn't know the full story and didn't need to. I ignored every single one. Silence wasn't punishment. It was clarity. I wasn't going to debate my own absence. Meanwhile, her world kept shrinking. The male best friend, the one she'd chosen in that moment without hesitation, had already vanished. After mocking her and brushing her off, he stopped responding entirely. Blocked her. Muted her. Pretended she didn't exist. The same way she'd erased me while I was standing 10 feet away. That part broke her in a way I never could have. Because when she went to him, she wasn't just looking for comfort. She was looking for confirmation that what she'd done meant something. That it hadn't been pointless. That she hadn't destroyed a real relationship for a lie. But he gave her nothing. No apology. No reassurance. No acknowledgement. Just distance. And distance, when you're already drowning, feels like abandonment. That's when she started spiraling. Friends noticed. Her closest ones at first tried to help, but even they couldn't ignore the obvious question everyone was asking quietly. Where is he? Why had I disappeared so completely? She tried telling a softer version of the story. That we'd fought. That I'd overreacted. That things were complicated. But the problem with vague explanations is that they invite scrutiny. And the more she talked, the worse it sounded. Some people stopped responding to her messages. Others kept conversations short. Invitations slowed. Sympathy has a short shelf life when no one understands what they're supposed to be sympathetic about. By the end of the week, she had no one left to run to. That's when she tried my family. My mother called first. I answered because I always answer her. She didn't accuse. She didn't beg. She just asked, carefully, what was going on. I told her the truth. Not in detail. Not emotionally. Just the facts. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and then she said something that confirmed I'd made the right choice. "I'm sorry," she said. "You don't deserve that." After that, I asked her one thing, that she not act as a messenger, that whatever was happening didn't need to travel through her. She respected that immediately. My sister wasn't as patient. She called angry, protective, wanted to know how someone could hurt me like that. I told her the same thing I told everyone else. I was fine, and I was done. Word got back to her faster than I expected. The messages changed again. This time, they weren't confused or frantic. They were apologetic, carefully written, long paragraphs sent late at night. She took responsibility, just enough to sound sincere, not enough to be uncomfortable. She said she'd made a mistake, that she hadn't been thinking, that she'd never meant to hurt me. She said she wanted to talk. I didn't respond. She sent voice messages next, crying, Saying my name over and over like repetition could reopen a door I'd already closed. I listened to one by accident when it autoplayed before I could stop it. Her voice was broken, shaking, desperate, and still, all I felt was distance. Because somewhere between seeing her on top of someone else and packing my life into boxes, something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt in the way she expected. I wasn't waiting for an explanation. I was done needing one. A week after I left, she showed up where she thought she could finally corner me. She went to my old workplace, hoping I'd still be there. When she was told I'd taken time off and wouldn't be coming back, she cried in the parking lot. Not quietly, not privately, enough for people to notice. That's when it finally sank in that I wasn't coming back. She tried one last strategy before desperation fully set in: accountability. Or at least, her version of it. She told mutual friends she'd messed up, that she'd crossed a line, that she'd do anything to fix it. She framed it like a redemption arc. But there's a difference between remorse and regret. Remorse is about the damage you caused someone else. Regret is about the damage you caused yourself. She was drowning in the second. 2 weeks after the party, she finally reached someone who agreed to pass along a message. Not a plea, not an apology, a request. She wanted to see me. Just once. No pressure. No expectations. Just to talk. I considered it longer than I should have. Not because I missed her. Not because I was tempted. But because there's a part of you that wonders if closure will feel better than silence. If hearing the words will make something easier. Then I remembered the bedroom door. The way she didn't notice me. The way I hadn't mattered enough to interrupt what she was doing. And I said no. I sent one message through that same person. One sentence. Calm. Final. I'm not angry. I'm just not available anymore. That was the moment she stopped asking. Not because she understood. Because she had no choice. And she still wasn't done unraveling. She disappeared for a while after that. Long enough that people assumed she'd finally accepted it. Long enough that even I wondered if she'd burned herself out trying to reach someone who no longer existed in her life. She hadn't. What she did instead was regroup. I found out later that she'd started telling a different version of the story. A cleaner one. One where she wasn't the villain, just misunderstood. She didn't deny what she'd done outright, but she softened it. Turned it into something vague and mutual. A bad night. A confusing situation. Something that happened because we'd been drifting. That part bothered me more than the cheating ever did. Because cheating is a decision. Rewriting history is a strategy. She told people I'd left without a word. That I'd abandoned her after an argument. That she'd been blindsided by my disappearance. She leaned into the silence I'd chosen and used it as evidence that I was cold, distant, impossible to communicate with. And for a moment, it worked. A few people reached out again. Not aggressively. Just probing. Asking if I was okay. Asking if things were really as bad as they sounded. Asking if I'd consider at least talking to her, so there could be closure. That's when I realized silence alone wasn't enough anymore. I wasn't going to defend myself publicly. I wasn't going to argue. But I also wasn't going to let someone rewrite the truth while pretending I was the problem. So I did one thing. Just one. I told the truth once. Not online. Not in a post. Not in a rant. I met with 2 people I trusted completely. People who had known both of us long before things fell apart. I didn't embellish. I didn't dramatize. I didn't show anger. I just told them exactly what happened. Where I was. What I saw. What I did next. I told them I didn't want sides taken. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted the truth to exist somewhere outside of my head. They didn't ask questions. They didn't challenge me. They just listened. And after that, I stopped explaining. What happened next wasn't loud, but it was decisive. Conversations shifted. Invitations changed. The tone around her name cooled. People didn't confront her directly. They just stopped engaging the way they used to. The benefit of the doubt quietly disappeared. She felt it immediately. She reached out again, this time angry, accusing me of poisoning people against her, of making her look like a monster. She demanded to know what I'd said, who I'd said it to, why I couldn't just let things go. I didn't respond. Because that was the moment I understood something important. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted control back. When she couldn't reach me directly, she tried going around me. She contacted my sister again, this time crying harder, framing herself as someone who'd made one terrible mistake and was now being punished forever. She said she was struggling, that she couldn't sleep, that she didn't recognize her own life anymore. My sister listened. Then she told her something I wish I'd said myself weeks earlier. You didn't lose him because of one mistake. You lost him because you made a choice and then acted like it shouldn't matter. That conversation ended badly. A few days later, she showed up at my old apartment, the one I'd moved out of. She didn't know I wasn't there anymore. She stood outside for over an hour, knocking, calling my name, crying in the hallway like proximity might summon me back into existence. A neighbor eventually told her I didn't live there anymore. That was the first time she realized how far I'd actually gone. Up until then, I think she believed I was waiting somewhere nearby, cooling off, sulking, that eventually I'd get tired of being alone and come back, ready to talk, ready to listen, ready to forgive. The idea that I'd removed myself entirely hadn't occurred to her. That night, she drank too much. Not in a dramatic, destructive way, in the quiet, lonely way people do when they run out of distractions. She called the male best friend again from a different number. He didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway, crying, apologizing, asking why he wouldn't just talk to her. He never replied. The next morning, she woke up with the full weight of it settling in. No boyfriend. No best friend. No social safety net. Just consequences she hadn't planned for. That's when the messages changed for real. They weren't about fixing things anymore. They were about survival. About not being alone. About undoing the damage in any way possible. She wrote to me from a new account. A long message. No excuses. No blame. Just guilt. She said she hated herself for what she'd done. That she'd ruined something good for something meaningless. That she finally understood what she'd lost. She asked for forgiveness. Not forgiveness as a concept, forgiveness as a lifeline. I read the message carefully, slowly, all the way through. And for the first time since the night of the party, I felt something stir. Not love, not anger, clarity. Because in every paragraph, every apology, every promise to change, there was one thing missing. Me. She talked about her pain, her regret, her fear, her loneliness, her shame. She never talked about what it had been like for me to walk into my own bedroom and realize I didn't exist in my own relationship. That's when I knew exactly how this was going to end. And I also knew she wasn't done trying yet. She didn't wait long after that. 2 days later, she showed up where I worked. Not inside the building. She knew better than that. But outside, across the street, leaning against her car like she'd just happened to be there. Same jacket she used to steal from my closet. Same nervous habit of twisting her rings when she was pretending to be calm. I noticed her the moment I stepped out. Our eyes met, and I saw the calculation happen in real time. She straightened, wiped her face, took a breath, and walked toward me like this was just another conversation we were overdue for. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice cracked on the last word. I didn't answer right away. I looked at her the way you look at someone you used to know well, but don't recognize anymore. Not with anger. Not with nostalgia. Just distance. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. She flinched, like she hadn't prepared for that answer. "I'm not here to fight," she said quickly. "I just need 5 minutes. Please." "I won't ask again." That was a lie. She would have asked again. She always did. But people were watching. Coworkers passing by. A security guard lingering too long. I didn't want a scene. Not for her sake, for mine. So I nodded once. 5 minutes. We walked a short distance down the block, far enough that no one could hear us, close enough that she couldn't pretend this was intimate. She started crying immediately. Not loud sobs. Controlled ones. The kind meant to communicate sincerity without losing dignity. "I know I don't deserve this," she said. "I know I hurt you. I replay that night over and over, and I hate myself for it." I said nothing. "I made a stupid choice," she continued. "A meaningless one, and I lost everything because of it." There it was. Everything. Not me. Not us. Everything. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. That seemed to shake her more than anything else. "He used me," she said suddenly, anger slipping through the tears. "He knew what he was doing. He waited until you were gone. He said it didn't mean anything, that it was just physical. And then he disappeared." I looked at her then. Really looked. "So you went to him after?" I asked. She hesitated. Just a second too long. "I needed someone," she said. I was spiraling. That second betrayal landed harder than the first. Not because she'd slept with him, but because she'd run to him the moment the consequences arrived. "You know what's funny?" I said calmly. "When I saw you that night, I didn't feel rage. I felt stupid, because I'd been protecting something that didn't exist." Her face twisted. That's not true. It is, I said. And every word you've said since just confirms it. She tried another angle then. Softer. Slower. I was insecure, she said. I felt invisible sometimes. He made me feel wanted. I let that sit. You were wanted, I said. You just weren't satisfied. She shook her head. I am now. I swear. I see it now. I see what I threw away. I believe that part. But insight born from loss isn't growth. It's panic. Why now? I asked. Why not before? Her mouth opened. Closed. Because now you're alone, I said quietly. And you don't know how to be. That did it. The tears stopped. Her expression hardened just enough for the truth to slip through. You're punishing me, she said. You're enjoying this. No, I replied. I'm protecting myself. She scoffed. So you're just going to erase me? Like 5 years meant nothing. They meant something, I said. That's why I left. She stared at me, confused. If they meant nothing, I would have screamed. I continued. I would have begged. I would have stayed and tried to understand. But they meant enough for me to walk away with what was left of my self-respect. For the first time, she looked scared. I can change, she said. I'll cut him off completely. I'll do therapy. I'll do whatever you want. That's the problem, I replied. You're still asking me what I want you to be. A car horn blared somewhere behind us. Someone laughed on the sidewalk. Life kept moving. I don't hate you, I said. But I don't trust you. And I don't love you the way I used to. Those things don't come back just because you're ready for them. She reached out again, desperate now. Please. I stepped back again. This is where it ends, I said. Not dramatically. Not cruelly. Just here. She stood there, stunned, like she'd expected resistance she could push through. What am I supposed to do now, she asked. I met her eyes one last time. That's not my responsibility anymore. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Later that night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A long message previewed on the screen. I didn't open it. I blocked it. That should have been the end. But when someone loses control over the story they thought they were writing, they don't always accept it quietly. And she still had one card left to play. She played it 3 days later. Not directly. Not to me. She went public. I found out because my sister called first. Did something happen between you and her? She asked carefully. Yes, I said. Why? There was a pause. She posted something strange. I didn't have social media anymore. I deleted it months ago for my own sanity. I asked my sister to send me a screenshot. When it came through, I stared at my phone longer than I should have. It was a long post. Emotional. Carefully worded. No names. No details that could be verified. Just implication after implication. She wrote about being discarded without explanation. About emotional abandonment. About how she'd been made to feel small for years and finally left when she needed support the most. She hinted at control, at coldness, at a man who walked away instead of fighting. Comments poured in underneath. Heart emojis. You deserve better. Some men are incapable of love. Proud of you for speaking your truth. And then the worst part. A comment from her male best friend. I know how much you tried. Some people can't handle accountability. My jaw didn't clench. My hands didn't shake. I felt disappointed. Because now I understood something important. This wasn't about regret. It wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't even about me. It was about control. She'd lost access to me privately, so she was trying to reclaim power publicly. By the end of the day, 3 mutual friends had texted me. Carefully neutral messages. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're okay. Saw something online and wanted to hear your side. I didn't reply. I didn't need a side. That night, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then another call. Then another. Then a text. This is her mom. Please answer. I stared at the screen for a long time before responding. I'm okay, I typed. But I'm not interested in discussing this. The reply came almost instantly. She's not okay. She hasn't been eating. She's made a terrible mistake. I didn't argue. I understand you're worried, I wrote. But this is between her and me. Please don't contact me again. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. She says you're being cruel. I set the phone down. That word didn't touch me the way it used to. Cruel would have been yelling. Cruel would have been humiliating her publicly. Cruel would have been exposing what I saw that night in my apartment. I'd done none of that. I'd simply left. The next escalation came faster than I expected. I was leaving the gym early one morning when I saw her car parked across the street. She was sitting inside, engine off, staring straight ahead. I didn't slow down. She got out anyway. Please, she said, louder this time. I just need to explain. I kept walking. You're letting people think you're a monster, she called after me. Why won't you defend yourself? I stopped. Not because she deserved an answer, but because I wanted the record straight, once. I turned around. I'm not defending myself, I said calmly. Because anyone who matters already knows who I am. Her face crumpled. You're letting me drown. No, I replied. You jumped. People nearby were watching now. She noticed and lowered her voice. He promised he'd be there for me, she said bitterly. He said it wouldn't be like this. There it was. He. I asked. She froze. You mean your friend? I said. The one you trusted. The one you chose. Her eyes filled with fury. He recorded me. The word landed heavy. He told me it was just for us, she whispered. Then he said if I didn't stop trying to fix things with you, he'd send it to people. I felt a flicker of something then. Not sympathy. Recognition. So you didn't come here because you missed me, I said. You came because you ran out of options. She broke. He won't answer my calls anymore, she cried. He blocked me after I refused to see him again. He got what he wanted and left. I nodded slowly. That's usually how that ends. You don't understand, she said desperately. I lost everything. No, I said. You lost leverage. Her mouth opened, then closed. I stepped back. Take the post down. She looked startled. What? Take it down, I repeated. Not for me. For yourself. Before you turn one mistake into a pattern you can't escape. She wiped her face. If I do, will you talk to me? No, I said gently. She stared at me like she'd been slapped. Then why should I? She demanded. Because one day, I said, you'll want to remember yourself as someone who stopped before it got worse. I turned and walked away. That night, the post disappeared. So did the comments. The silence afterward wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. But for the first time since I'd left my apartment that night, I felt something settle. I hadn't won. I hadn't lost. I'd just stepped out of a story that was never going to end well. I thought that would be the last time I heard from her. I was wrong. Because desperation doesn't fade quietly. And when people realize they've burned every bridge except one, they sometimes try to blow it up on their way out. She didn't explode right away. That came later. At first, there was silence. A clean stretch of days where nothing happened. No calls. No posts. No cars waiting outside places I frequented. No messages from family members acting as intermediaries. That silence almost fooled me. Almost. Because silence like that isn't peace. It's regrouping. I found out she'd lost her job about a week later. Not because she told me, because one of her coworkers reached out, confused, looking for answers I didn't have. Apparently, she'd shown up late multiple times. Left early. Had emotional breakdowns in the bathroom. Once, she'd been caught crying at her desk with her phone open to messages she refused to explain. HR gave her a warning. Then another. Then she missed an entire shift without calling. They let her go. That same evening, her mother called again. From a different number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. It wasn't angry. It wasn't manipulative. It was tired. She's staying with us now, her mother said. She barely sleeps. She barely eats. I know you don't owe us anything, but please, she's not who she was. I deleted the voicemail without replying. Not because I didn't hear the pain in her voice, but because I recognized the trap. If I responded once, it would become a conversation. If it became a conversation, it would become negotiation. And if it became negotiation, it would become my responsibility again. I wasn't going to carry that weight anymore. 2 days after that, she tried a different angle. She emailed me. Not from her account, from a shared drive address we'd once used to plan trips. Subject line, no excuses. I almost didn't open it. Almost. The email was long. Longer than anything she'd ever written me when we were together. She admitted to sleeping with him. Admitted it wasn't a mistake, but a series of choices she justified because she thought I'd never leave. She admitted she liked the attention, the risk, the feeling of being wanted without accountability. She admitted something else too. She'd been telling him things about me for months. Not just complaints, distortions. That I was emotionally distant. That I made her feel trapped. That I didn't really care if she stayed or left. That I'd never fight for her the way he would. He said he felt like he was saving me, she wrote. I let him believe that. That part didn't hurt. It clarified. She ended the email with a plea. I know I don't deserve another chance. But I need you to know I see it now. I see what I did. If you could just talk to me once, in person, I swear I won't ask for anything else. I closed the laptop. I didn't respond. Not because she didn't sound sincere, but because sincerity after consequence isn't the same as sincerity before betrayal. The next escalation was uglier. One afternoon, a friend sent me a screenshot with a single line. "You need to see this." It was a private group chat message that had leaked. One she didn't know had been shared. In it, she claimed I'd been emotionally controlling, that I isolated her, that I made her dependent and then abandoned her when she stopped complying. There it was, the pivot. When guilt didn't work, she moved to narrative control. That night, I broke my silence. I didn't post publicly. I didn't comment. I didn't defend myself to strangers. I sent one message to her. Do not lie about me again. If you do, I will correct the record. Fully. She replied within seconds. I wasn't lying. That's how it felt. I typed slowly. Feelings don't rewrite facts. And if you force me to speak, I won't be gentle. There was no response after that. The lies stopped. But the fallout didn't. Her male best friend, the one she thought had chosen her, resurfaced again, this time indirectly. A mutual acquaintance told me he'd been bragging. Not about the affair, about how messy she was afterward. How she couldn't let go. How he didn't sign up to babysit. The same man who once promised her protection had reduced her to a punchline. That knowledge didn't give me satisfaction. It gave me closure. Because now I saw the full picture. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd bet against me. She'd assumed I was the safe option. The stable fallback. The man who would always be there, no matter what she did or who she chose. And when that assumption collapsed, everything else followed. The apology. The public post. The lies. The desperation. Not because she loved me, but because she lost the future she thought she could always return to. About a month later, she tried one last time. She showed up at my old apartment, the one I no longer lived in. The landlord called me because she was refusing to leave, crying in the hallway, telling anyone who'd listen that she just needed to talk. I authorized him to call the police. By the time they arrived, she was gone. That was the moment I finally understood something important. Closure doesn't come when the other person understands. It comes when you stop needing them to. I'd already moved cities by then. New place, new routine, new anonymity. She didn't know where I lived. She didn't know where I worked. She didn't know who I spent my time with. And that, more than forgiveness, more than anger, more than revenge, was the consequence she couldn't survive. Because for the first time, she wasn't the center of the story. She was just a chapter I'd finished reading. And I wasn't turning back. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not because I was hiding, but because I was done explaining. I packed what I needed in 2 suitcases, sold what I didn't, and transferred my job internally to a city where no one knew her name. No shared memories. No, "Oh, you're her ex?" conversations. Just clean air and unfamiliar streets. The first few weeks felt strange. Not lonely, quiet. The kind of quiet you notice when you're no longer bracing yourself for someone else's mood. I slept through the night. Ate when I was hungry, not when it was convenient. Went entire days without checking my phone. That's when I realized how much of my life had been spent managing someone else's emotional weather. About 6 weeks in, her sister reached out. She wasn't angry. She wasn't pleading. She sounded embarrassed. "I know you blocked everyone," she said. "But I just wanted you to know, she keeps asking if you've moved on. She keeps saying she needs to apologize in person. Like that would fix it." I thanked her for telling me. Then I blocked that number too. Not out of spite. Out of self-respect. People think closure is a conversation. It's not. It's a decision. Around that time, the truth started circulating without my involvement. Her friends stopped inviting her places. Not dramatically, quietly. The way people do when they don't trust someone anymore. Invitations forgotten. Group chats going silent when she joined. Smiles that didn't reach eyes. She blamed me for that too. Said I'd turned people against her. I hadn't said a word. The truth doesn't need a spokesperson. The same mutual acquaintance who'd told me about her job loss reached out again later. He didn't know what to say at first. "I ran into her last weekend," he said. "She was different. Bitter. Kept bringing you up. Kept saying she'd made one mistake and lost everything." "One?" I asked. He didn't answer. That was another thing I'd learned. People who betray rarely remember it as a series of choices. They compress it into a single accident to survive the guilt. A few months passed. Life filled in the gaps she'd left behind. I joined a gym. Not to prove anything, just to move. I started cooking again. reading again, saying yes to things without worrying how they'd be interpreted. One night, at a small get-together hosted by a coworker, someone asked me why I'd moved cities so suddenly. I paused, then said, I needed a reset. They nodded. No follow-up questions. It felt good not being a story people wanted details about. That's when she tried again, indirectly. A friend of a friend sent me a message request. She says she doesn't expect forgiveness anymore. The message read, she just wants you to know she understands why you left. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Then I declined the request. Understanding after damage is acknowledgement, not repair. The last time I heard from her was 6 months later. A handwritten letter. No return address. Somehow forwarded. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't manipulative. It was resigned. She wrote that the man she'd chosen disappeared as soon as things got hard. That the confidence she thought she'd found turned out to be arrogance without loyalty. That she finally saw what stability actually meant, too late. She didn't ask me to come back. She asked me to remember her kindly. I folded the letter once, then put it away, not because I hated her, but because I no longer needed to process her feelings. That chapter was closed. And for the first time since the night I caught her in my apartment with someone she'd sworn was just a friend, I felt something that surprised me. Not relief. Not victory. Peace. Because moving on isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just happens, quietly, decisively, when you stop trying to save someone who never tried to save you. And that was the moment I knew I'd won without fighting. The strangest part wasn't that my life improved after she was gone. It was how quickly my body stopped reacting to the thought of her. No tight chest. No replaying conversations. No urge to check what she might be doing now. Just neutrality. That's when you know something is truly over. About a year after I left, I ran into her mother, not by accident, but by choice on her part. She had asked a mutual acquaintance where I was living now. When she finally found me, she waited outside a cafe near my office, hands folded like she was bracing for impact. She didn't accuse me. She didn't defend her daughter. She just looked tired. I wanted to apologize, she said. Not for her. For me. I told her too many times she deserved more without ever asking what she already had. I nodded. That was all. She hesitated, then asked the question everyone always asks in different ways. Are you happy? I didn't smile. I didn't exaggerate. Yes, I said. I am. Her shoulders sagged, like she'd been holding something heavy for years. That's good, she said quietly. You always were steady. I finished my coffee, stood up, wished her well, and walked away. That was the last loose thread. People assume stories like this end with revenge, or humiliation, or some dramatic final confrontation. They expect shouting, tears, closure speeches. But real endings rarely look like that. Real endings look like boundaries that don't bend. They look like silence that doesn't feel empty anymore. They look like choosing not to respond. Not because you're angry, but because you're done. I never unblocked her. I never checked her profiles. I never asked anyone how she was doing. Not out of cruelty, but because the version of me who needed to know had died the night I walked into my apartment and saw the truth with my own eyes. That moment didn't just end a relationship. It rewired how I understood love. I learned that loyalty isn't loud, that respect doesn't need reminders, that someone who truly values you doesn't put you in positions where you have to question your worth. And I learned that walking away, calmly, cleanly, without begging or explaining, is sometimes the strongest response there is. If you're still here, take this with you. If someone betrays you and expects forgiveness just because they regret the consequences, not the choice, you don't owe them access to your life anymore. You owe yourself peace. And if this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to choose yourself after betrayal, feel free to stay with the channel. More stories like this are coming. I'll see you in the next one.